Despite heavy condemnation from around the world for handing death sentences to those taking part in anti-government protests, Iran once again has executed 2 protesters. The 2 men were hanged for killing a security official during the nationwide protests. The 2 men were identified as Mohammad Mehdi Karami and Sayed Mohammed Hosseini. They were convicted of killing a member of the Basij paramilitary force. Iran's judicial news agency has said that the Supreme Court upheld the sentence of capital punishment, accusing them of killing the official on 3rd of November last year. 3 others have been sentenced to death in the same case, while 11 people have received prison sentences. A video has emerged showing Karami's parents begging the Iranian regime to spare their son 2 weeks ago. However, the appeal fell on deaf ears. Karami was 22 years old and a karate champion. The hangings have taken place despite a campaign by international rights groups for the lives of the 2 men to be spared. Karami's father had told Iranian media that a family lawyer had been able to access his son's case file. The killing of 2 young men takes the number of protesters executed by the Iranian regime to 4. We are now being joined by David Patrick Caracos. He's a political analyst, an author, and also a journalist. David, welcome to WION.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, the Amnesty International says, and I'll read this to you, given that the Iranian authorities are adamant on continuing their killing spree, both on the streets and through sham trials, it fails on the international community to urgently take action to stop further executions. It seems like the international community is mum about this execution. Why?
Well, I mean, look, I don't think that they're sort of not saying a lot. I mean, there's a limit to what they can do. You know, human rights groups have expressed concern, as they always do. There'll be a few statements of condemnation from politicians around the world. But as you say, it will only go so far. I mean, I think what this shows, though, is the continuing brutality of the regime and the degree to which they are completely rattled and discombobulated and terrified by the protests, which, let us not forget, have been going on for months and months and months and have still not stopped. And they're executing young people, these Gen Zers, people who came of age decades after the Islamic Republic came to power, who have nothing in common with these people, the regime, who grew up with TikTok and Facebook, no matter how, on Twitter, no matter how, on Instagram, no matter how the regime tries to block social media. So I think this is a tragedy. It's obviously an abhorrent miscarriage of justice, but it's also a sign of the Iranian regime's continuing and growing weakness.
David, now that it is clear that the regime has failed to crush the unrest and still leading with archaic, doctrines and rules, who or what will come to the rescue of Iranians at this point of time?
Well, the only people that can come to the rescue of Iranians are Iranians. As I've said before, for the moment, the regime, retains the monopoly on violence. It retains complete control. But let us not forget, and I've said this before on this station, and I'll say it again, we have to understand what is at stake here. In 2009, Iranians took to the streets wearing green because they were supporting the defeated candidate Mir Hossein Mousavi, who wore green, against vote rigging. It was almost a single-issue protest. This is not about vote rigging. This is not about corruption. This is not about brutality. This is not even about the hijab. The hijab has just become a symbol. This is about the regime itself. They have had enough of the regime itself. The regime has lost all legitimacy now. It could still take, a long time for it to fall. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years or 5 years. But the regime now is in a worse position than any other time since the establishment of the Islamic Republic in 1979.
David, I'll not let you go just yet. Stay with me. I want us to talk about something else still related to Iran. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.